Born in 9 Mile, Jamaica, Marley began his professional musical career in 1963, after forming the Teenagers with Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, which after several name changes would become the Wailers. The group released its debut studio album The Wailing Wailers in 1965, which contained the single, One Love, a reworking of People Get Ready. The song was popular worldwide, and established the group as a rising figure in reggae. The Wailers released a further 11 studio albums, and after signing to Island Records the band's name became Bob Marley and the Wailers. While initially employing louder instrumentation and singing, the group began engaging in rhythmic-based song construction in the late 1960s and early 1970s, which coincided with Marley's conversion to Rastafari. Around this time, Marley relocated to London, and the group embodied their musical shift with the release of the album The Best to the Wailers, 1971-10. The group started to gain international attention after signing to Island, and touring in support of the albums Catch a Fire and Burnin', both 1973. Following the disbandment of the Wailers a year later, Marley carried on under the band's name. 11. The album Natty Dread, 1974, received positive reception. In 1975, following the global popularity of Eric Clapton's version of Marley's I Shot the Sheriff, 12, Marley had his international breakthrough with his first hit outside Jamaica, with the live version of No Woman, No Cry, from the live album. 13. This was followed by his breakthrough album in the United States, Rastaman Vibration, 1976, which reached the top 50 of the Billboard Soul charts. 14. A few months after the album's release, Marley survived an assassination attempt at his home in Jamaica, which prompted him to permanently relocate to London. During his time in London he recorded the album Exodus, 1977. It incorporated elements of blues, soul, and British rock and enjoyed widespread commercial and critical success. In 1977, Marley was diagnosed with acrolentiginous melanoma. He died as a result of the illness in 1981, shortly after baptism into the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. His fans around the world expressed their grief, and he received a state funeral in Jamaica. The Greatest Hits album Legend was released in 1984, and became the best-selling reggae album of all time. 15. Marley also ranks as one of the best-selling music artists of all time, with estimated sales of more than 75 million records worldwide. 16. He was posthumously honored by Jamaica soon after his death with a designated Order of Merit by his nation. In 1994, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rolling Stone ranked him number 11 on its list of the 100 greatest artists of all time. 17. His other achievements include a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, an induction into the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame. Robert Nesta Marley was born on the 6th of February 1945 at the farm of his maternal grandfather in 9 Mile, St. Ann Parish, Jamaica, to Norval Sinclair Marley and Cedella Malcolm. 18. Norval Marley was from Crowborough, East Sussex in England. 19. Then resident of Clarendon Parish. 20, 21, 22, 23. Norval claimed to have been a captain in the Royal Marines. 24. At the time of his marriage to Cedella Malcolm, an Afro-Jamaican then 18 years old, he was employed as a plantation overseer. 24, 25. Bob Marley's full name is Robert Nesta Marley, though some sources give his birth name as Nesta Robert Marley. with a story that when Marley was still a boy, a Jamaican passport official reversed his first and middle names because Nesta sounded like a girl's name. 26-27, Norval provided financial support for his wife and child but seldom saw them as he was often away. Bob Marley attended Stepney Primary and Junior High School, which serves the catchment area of St. Anne. 28-29, in 1955, when Bob Marley was 10 years old, his father died of a heart attack at the age of 70. 30, Marley's mother went on later to marry Edward Booker, a civil servant from the United States, giving Marley two half-brothers, Richard and Anthony. 31. Bob Marley and Neville Livingston, later known as Bunny Wailer, had been childhood friends in 9 Mile. They had started to play music together while at Stepney Primary and Junior High School. 33. Marley left 9 Mile with his mother when he was 12 and moved to Trenchtown, Kingston. She and Thaddeus Livingston, Bunny Wailer's father, had a daughter together whom they named Claudette Pearl, 34, who was a younger sister to both Bob and Bunny. Now that Marley and Livingston were living together in the same house in Trenchtown, their musical explorations deepened to include the new ska music, and the latest R&B from United States radio stations whose broadcasts reached Jamaica. 35. Marley formed a vocal group with Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh. The lineup was known variously as the Teenagers, the Wailing Rude Boys, the Wailing Wailers, and finally just the Wailers. Joe Higgs, who was part of the successful vocal act Higgs and Wilson, lived nearby and encouraged Marley. 36. Marley and the others did not play any instruments at this time, and were more interested in being a vocal harmony group. Higgs helped them develop their vocal harmonies, and started to teach Marley how to play guitar. 37-38. 1962-1972. Early years. In February 1962, Marley recorded 4 songs: Judge Not, One Cup of Coffee, Do You Still Love Me, and Terror, at Federal Studios for local music producer Leslie Kahn. 39. 3 of the songs were released on Beverly's, with One Cup of Coffee being released under the pseudonym Bobby Marley. 40. In 1963, Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh, Junior Braithwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Smith were called the Teenagers. They later changed the name to the Wailing Rude Boys, then to the Wailing Wailers, at which point they were discovered by record producer Coxsone Dodd, and finally to the Wailers. Their single, Simmer Down, for the Coxsone label became a Jamaican #1 in February 1964, selling an estimated 70,000 copies. 41. The Wailers, now regularly recording for Studio One, found themselves working with established Jamaican musicians such as Ernest Ranglin, arranger, It Hurts to Be Alone. 42. The keyboardist Jackie Mittoo and saxophonist Roland Alfonso. By 1966, Braithwaite, Kelso, and Smith had left the Wailers, leaving the core trio of Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, and Peter Tosh. 43. In 1966, Marley married Rita Anderson, and moved near his mother's residence in Wilmington, Delaware, in the United States for a short time, during which he worked as a DuPont lab assistant, and on the assembly line and as a forklift operator at a Chrysler plant in nearby Newark, under the alias Donald Marley. 44-45. Though raised as a Catholic, Marley became interested in Rastafari beliefs in the 1960s, when away from his mother's influence. 46. After returning to Jamaica, Marley formally converted to Rastafari and began to grow dreadlocks. After a financial disagreement with Dodd, Marley and his band teamed up with Lee Scratch Perry and his studio band, The Upsetters. Although the alliance lasted less than a year, they recorded what many consider the Wailers' finest work. Marley and Perry split after a dispute regarding the assignment of recording rights, but they would continue to work together. 47. 1969 brought another change to Jamaican popular music in which the beat slowed down even further. The new beat was a slow, steady, ticking rhythm that was first heard on the Maytals song, Do the Reggae. Marley approached producer Leslie Kong, who was regarded as one of the major developers of the reggae sound. For the recordings, Kong combined the Wailers with his studio musicians called Beverly's All-Stars, which consisted of the bassists Lloyd Parks and Jackie Jackson, the drummer Paul Douglas, the keyboard players Gladstone Anderson and Winston Wright, and the guitarists Rad Bryan, Lynn Tate, and Hux Brown. 48, as David Moskowitz writes, the tracks recorded in this session illustrated the Wailers' earliest efforts in the new reggae style. Gone are the ska trumpets and saxophones of the earlier songs, with instrumental breaks now being played by the electric guitar. The songs recorded would be released as the album The Best of the Wailers, including tracks Soul Shakedown Party, Stop the Train, Caution, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Soon Come, Can't You See, Soul Captives, Cheer Up, Back Out, and Do It Twice. 48. Between 1968 and 1972, Bob and Rita Marley, Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer recut some old tracks with Jad Records in Kingston and London in an attempt to commercialize the Wailers' sound. Bunny later asserted that these songs should never be released on an album. They were just demos for record companies to listen to. In 1968, Bob and Rita visited songwriter Jimmy Norman at his apartment in the Bronx. Norman had written the extended lyrics for Kai Winding's Time Is on My Side, covered by the Rolling Stones, and had also written for Johnny Nash and Jimi Hendrix. 49. A three-day jam session with Norman and others, including Norman's co-writer Al Pyfrom, resulted in a 24-minute tape of Marley performing several of his own and Norman Pyfrom's compositions. This tape is, according to reggae archivist Roger Steffens, rare in that it was influenced by pop rather than reggae, as part of an effort to break Marley into the U.S. charts. 49. According to an article in the New York Times, Marley experimented on the tape with different sounds, adopting a doo-wop style on Stay With Me, and the slow love song style of 1960s artists, on Splish for My Splash. 49. An artist yet to establish himself outside his native Jamaica, Marley lived in Ridgemount Gardens, Bloomsbury, during 1972. 50. 1972–1974. Moved to Island Records in 1972. Bob Marley signed with CBS Records in London and embarked on a UK tour with soul singer Johnny Nash. 51. While in London, the Wailers asked their road manager Brent Clark to introduce them to Chris Blackwell, who had licensed some of their Coxsone releases for his Island Records. The Wailers intended to discuss the royalties associated with these releases. Instead, the meeting resulted in the offer of an advance of £4,000 to record an album. 52. Since Jimmy Cliff, Island's top reggae star, had recently left the label, Blackwell was primed for a replacement. In Marley, Blackwell recognized the elements needed to snare the rock audience. I was dealing with rock music, which was really rebel music. I felt that would really be the way to break Jamaican music. But you needed someone who could be that image. When Bob walked in, he really was that image. 53. The Wailers returned to Jamaica to record at Harry J's in Kingston, which resulted in the album Catch a Fire. Primarily recorded on an 8-track, Catch a Fire marked the first time a reggae band had access to a state-of-the-art studio and were accorded the same care as their rock and roll peers. 53. Blackwell desired to create more of a drifting, hypnotic type feel than a reggae rhythm. 54. And restructured Marley's mixes and arrangements. Marley traveled to London to supervise Blackwell's overdubbing of the album at Island Studios, which included tempering the mix from the bass-heavy sound of Jamaican music and omitting 2 tracks. 53. The Wailers' first album for Island, Catch a Fire, was released worldwide in April 1973, packaged like a rock record with a unique Zippo lighter lift top. Initially selling 14,000 units, it received a positive critical reception. 53. It was followed later that year by the album Burnin', which included the song, I Shot the Sheriff. Eric Clapton was given the album by his guitarist George Terry in the hope that he would enjoy it. 55. Clapton was impressed and chose to record a cover version of I Shot the Sheriff, which became his first U.S. hit since Layla 2 years earlier and reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on the 14th of September 1974. 56. Many Jamaicans were not keen on the new reggae sound on Catch a Fire, but the Trenchtown style of Burnin' found fans across both reggae and rock audiences. 53. During this period, Blackwell gifted his Kingston residence and company headquarters at 56 Hope Road, then known as Island House, to Marley. Housing Tough Gong Studios, the property became not only Marley's office but also his home. 53. The Wailers were scheduled to open 17 shows in the U.S. for Sly and the Family Stone. After 4 shows, the band was fired because they were more popular than the acts they were opening for. 57. The Wailers disbanded in 1974, with each of the 3 main members pursuing a solo career. 1974–1976. Lineup changes and shooting. Despite the breakup, Marley continued recording as Bob Marley and the Wailers. His new backing band included brothers Carlton and Aston, Family Man, Barrett on drums and bass respectively, Junior Marvin and Al Anderson on lead guitar, Tyrone Downey and Earl Waya Lindo on keyboards, and Alvin Seco Patterson on percussion. The I-Threes, consisting of Judy Mowat, Marcia Griffiths, and Marley's wife, Rita, provided backing vocals. In 1975, Marley had his international breakthrough with his first hit outside Jamaica, with a live version of No Woman, No Cry, from the live album 13. This was followed by his breakthrough album in the United States, Rastaman Vibration, 1976, which reached the top 50 of the Billboard Soul charts. 14. On the 3rd of December 1976, 2 days before Smile Jamaica, a free concert organized by the Jamaican Prime Minister Michael Manley in an attempt to ease tension between 2 warring political groups, Marley, his wife, and manager Don Taylor were wounded in an assault by unknown gunmen inside Marley's home. Taylor and Marley's wife sustained serious injuries but later made full recoveries. Bob Marley received minor wounds in the chest and arm. 58. The attempt on his life was thought to have been politically motivated, as many felt the concert was really a support rally for Manley. Nonetheless, the concert proceeded, and an injured Marley performed as scheduled, 2 days after the attempt. When asked why, Marley responded, "The people who are trying to make this world worse aren't taking a day off. How can I?" Citation needed. The members of the group Zap Pow played as Bob Marley's backup band before a festival crowd of 80,000 while members of the Wailers were still missing or in hiding. 59-60. 1976–1979. Relocation to England. Marley left Jamaica at the end of 1976, and after a month-long recovery in writing, sojourn at the site of Chris Blackwell's Compass Point Studios in Nassau, Bahamas, arrived in England, where he spent 2 years in self-imposed exile. Whilst in England, he recorded the albums Exodus and Kaya. Exodus stayed on the British album charts for 56 consecutive weeks. It included 4 UK hit singles: Exodus, Waiting in Vain, Jamming, and One Love, which interpolates Curtis Mayfield's hit, People Get Ready. During his time in London, he was arrested and received a conviction for possession of a small quantity of cannabis. 61. In 1978, Marley returned to Jamaica and performed at another political concert, the One Love Peace Concert, again in an effort to calm warring parties. Near the end of the performance, by Marley's request, Michael Manley, leader of then-ruling People's National Party, and his political rival Edward Seaga, leader of the opposing Jamaica Labour Party, joined each other on stage and shook hands. 62. Under the name Bob Marley and the Wailers, 11 albums were released, 4 live albums and 7 studio albums. The releases included Babylon by Bus, a double live album with 13 tracks, was released in 1978 and received critical acclaim. This album, and specifically the final track, Jamming, with the audience in a frenzy, captured the intensity of Marley's live performances. 63. 1979–1981. Later Years Survival, a defiant and politically charged album, was released in 1979. Tracks such as Zimbabwe, Africa Unite, Wake Up and Lie, and Survival reflected Marley's support for the struggles of Africans. His appearance at the Amandla Festival in Boston in July 1979 showed his strong opposition to South African apartheid, which he already had shown in his song, War, in 1976. In early 1980, he was invited to perform at the 17th of April celebration of Zimbabwe's Independence Day. 65. Uprising, 1980, was Bob Marley's final studio album, and is one of his most religious productions. It includes Redemption Song and Forever Loving Jah. 66. Confrontation, released posthumously in 1983, contained unreleased material recorded during Marley's lifetime, including the hit Buffalo Soldier, and new mixes of singles previously only available in Jamaica. 67.